Hi, my name is Jose Reyes, and I chose to do my project on core domain 4.3, which goes over the relationship abuse, the cycle of violence, the characteristics of an abusive relationship, and the impact on survivors. And I thought it was important to do my project on this because I think at one point in our lives we've all been in a relationship that we weren't happy in maybe the way it ended or the way we actually were in the relationship. So I think it's important to go over this information to recognize signs that we need to avoid or recognize signs that we may be a part of at this moment. So, pretty much what I'd like to do first is speak about what an abusive relationship is. So, an abusive relationship is a relationship where there's a pattern of abuse or coercive behaviors that are used to maintain power and control over the partner. This abuse can be physical, such as hitting, beating, or mental, or even can be a form of intimidation or isolation. So, for example, someone not letting their partner speak to their friends or their family, or pretty much discouraging any type of interaction they have with friends or family. So, the characteristics of an abusive relationship are jealousy and possessiveness. So, again, jealousy pretty much relates to an example in our book says, in our textbook says, imagine that you see your significant other talking to someone else, and perhaps that person is laughing, and maybe even there's a touch between the two people. So some people might begin to feel um, somewhat jealous and maybe even wonder, why is my partner touching or speaking to that person? So that is a level of jealousness, which is a small one. Our text goes on to say that maybe it's a friend or a family member, so we wouldn't be jealous. But that's essentially the basis of what being jealous is. Now, in an abusive relationship, we might see someone uh, being jealous or being very jealous to the point where they don't like their partner speaking to anyone. Another one would be possessiveness. That might be maybe telling your partner, well, you can't hang out with your friends, or if your friends are going out, the partner might say, no, you can't go, or even something as far as a family outing, saying, no, you're not going. And usually the reason for that is because they're trying to, of course, be possessive, but they're trying to isolate the person. Usually they do this because when they're isolating someone, they're keeping them away from someone that might even be able to help them, like a friend or a family member. Um, so that's pretty much what possessive, the characteristics of an abusive relationship. What I'd also like to talk about is the cycle of violence. And that's pretty much how everything begins. So usually that's where an incident will occur. So that's maybe a partner might hit their partner, or a partner might have some sort of emotional or sexual abuse to the other one. So that's usually where it begins, where the abuse actually starts. That's the incident. So after that, there's what's called tension building. That's where the abuser, after the abuse, gets angry, or there's a breakdown in communication and a lot of tension in the relationship, and it's almost where the person that is suffering the abuse begins to feel like they're almost walking on eggshells. So they're not really comfortable in acting normal and in their everyday um, dealings. Next, there's making up. That's usually where the abuser apologizes for what they've done. The emotional, the physical, striking someone. They might say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry I hit you. I'm sorry I acted that way." They might even say, "I did it because I love you," or "I did it because I care about you." Um, they might promise that it'll never happen again. And it's not really because they feel sorry, but it's really they're apologizing or trying to make things better because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't um, want to take the blame for what's happening. Next, we go to the calm phase, and that's almost where the abuser tries to move past what happened. They just act normal. Let's forget about it. Let's move on. and let's work on our relationship. And all these types of abuse can have a very strong impact on the survivors. Um, it can cause, of course, physical damage, physical pain, from beatings or from any type of physical abuse. But it can also have a very strong emotional response. So, for example, a person could go through depression or post-traumatic stress disorder. Usually, these traumatic uh, instances can lead to, like I said, depression, um, and also it can also affect a person's self-esteem, their self-worth. So usually they might begin to blame themselves or think that that's this abuse is happening to them for a reason. So like I said, I think it's very important to note that this could happen to a man or a woman. It's not always a woman that's being abused. It could be a man. So it could be a man abusing his girlfriend, or even a man abusing his boyfriend or girlfriend, or vice versa. So I believe it's important to know what the signs are, and if there is some sort of abuse going on in the relationship, uh, address it as soon as possible and do your best to change that behavior. Thank you, and my name is Jose Reyes.